Good evening, I'm Jace Gibbons.
And I'm Riley Klepper.
And for this month, we're representing Hempfield Happenings, a student-run news show from the communications program at Hempfield High School.
This month's news show is complete with stories ranging from a unique perspective on the events of the Holocaust,
how everyone can stay safer on the internet,
and a look into one student's journey through the arts program. This is Hempfield Happenings.
Our first story of the night is all about the recess equipment here at Hempfield and how the school district ensures that all students are safe while on the playground.
Hempfield School District strives to keep students safe while also providing a fun learning environment. But how does this goal translate to the playground, where entertainment and safety often collide? Well, Mr. Dan Forey says it's all about maintenance.
Building custodial supervisors have checklists that they do through. They'll look at the equipment throughout the time frame it's being used, look for any breaks, any loose materials, any rusting, anything like that we can address and keep it in good shape for the students to use. Usually a big piece of play equipment will be out there for 15 to 20 years. You know, if you install it properly, if you're maintaining it, that's usually not an issue. The big thing is you want kids to have fun, but you don't want them getting injured.
So the equipment is safe to use, but how does it meet student standards?
I like climbing on the things.
I like the swings because they're just fun to swing on.
I don't like boys on it. They're annoying. They climb up the slides and everything.
Some playground pieces cost up to $20,000, but the school is willing to spend lots of money in order to prevent the students from being harmed.
For Hempfield Happening!
I'm Ethan Miller.
While all of Hempfield's elementary schools are helping to ensure the students' safety, Landisville Intermediate Center is helping students with the transition to a new school by holding transition events.
Are we ready?
Whether from elementary school to middle school, or middle school to high school, the change can be tough for students. So what can schools do to help students with this transition? When moving up between two schools, students often have a hard time integrating into their new environment.
Students need to learn the culture, the expectations of the school, kind of the unwritten curriculum.
And aside from school culture, even walking through the halls can be an issue.
I thought I'd get lost or something.
So what can schools do to make these transitions more smooth for students? At the Intermediate Center, they have transition events.
We have multiple events in which third grade gets the chance to walk over and meet with different fourth grade teachers. They meet me, they meet our guidance counselor, Mrs. Casabo.
And for many students, getting to know their teachers is very beneficial.
I like asking them questions and knowing how nice they are.
A lot of research talks about how if they know that one other person or that other person when they come to the new school knows their name, how critical that is to their success in the transition of a new school.
With a scavenger hunt taking students across the school, kids can learn the school's layout.
Okay, good.
An activity that proved to be popular amongst attendees. What's your favorite part about it?
Scavenger hunt? Yeah, because we get to explore and know where all the stuff is. Yeah.
Events like this prepare not only students for their new environment, but also their parents.
I have had 9 years of LPC with Devin, my youngest, finishing up third grade right now, and I think the school's done a tremendous job of preparing the parents as well as the students for their LIC experience.
Through these events, schools can help students and parents get used to their new environment. From Hempfield Happenings, I'm Connor Sensenig.
After going to Landisville Intermediate Center, students moved to Landisville Middle School, where they have experiences like award-winning author Sharon Flake visiting to talk about her book, The Skin I'm In.
Here at the Landisville Middle School, there is a large selection of fiction books, and authors use such books to instill good morals in the students who read them. Sharon Flake is the author of 9 novels, including The Skin I'm In, which has sold over 1.5 million copies and focuses heavily on topics of bullying and racism.
They invited me here, the librarian and some of the English teachers invited me here because students have been reading my work and some of the teachers have been using my work for years. In the classroom, the library, they wanted me to come in and talk to their students and have their students meet me.
The entire student body was fortunate enough to hear Ms. Flake speak during an assembly at the end of the day about the themes touched on in her most popular book.
For that particular book, The Skin I'm In, it is anti-bullying, it's colorism, it's people judging people based on the color of their skin, and what is that about, and how does that even happen? You know, it's a global issue. There is the whole thing about liking yourself no matter who you are and how you are. Like one question I sometimes ask is, what does bullying look like at your school? Every once in a while some kid will say, we don't have any bullying here, to which I'm like, nah, that's not right.
Some students weren't merely audience members in this assembly, however. A few students had the opportunity to perform scenes from The Skin I'm In front of Ms. Flake and their classmates.
I think our role was to inspire Sharon, to show her that, like, she's not the only one that is going through it. There's a lot of people out there in the world that go through the same thing. And I think that really affects a lot of people, and show them that, you know, it doesn't matter how you look on the outside, it matters what's on the inside. And I think that really was our main role today.
This book has been an eye-opener for many middle school students, regardless of race.
We have kids in our school that are darker colored. Like, I know I'm mixed, so like I definitely relate to the story. And even though the main character in her story is black, a lot of people can put herself in her shoes.
Ms. Flake's address, much like her books, was an inspiration to those who heard it and will continue to bring change for years to come. For Hempfield Happenings, I'm Brandon Kanke.
Landisville Middle School also hosted Richard Schmiga, the son of 2 Holocaust survivors, to teach the students a deeper lesson.
They spoke a lot of Italian, and they became in love with the Italian language.
There are few people still living who experienced the Holocaust, one of the worst mass genocides in history. It's important for students to learn about this tragic event so that history does not repeat itself.
Mr. Richard Schmiga came to Landisville Middle School to speak to his 7th grade class currently learning about the Holocaust. His parents were survivors of the Holocaust themselves.
Growing up, my parents spoke very, very, very little about it. It was very rarely brought up. It probably wasn't really talked about until I got to college. So I was like 19 years old till we really spoke about it openly. Other than knowing that your parents were survivors, they didn't talk about the atrocities or the situations they went through. It was taboo almost.
The Holocaust started in the 1940s, and as time has passed, the tragedy seems to fade further and further from people's minds. It is crucial for the memory of these events to be passed on to future generations.
But as I got older, and probably the late 20s and onward, I became more aware, like, wow, this is something that I got to make sure I understand, because realizing that as years go on, there's not going to be anybody around to continue telling that story. So I have to fill that void for that timeline, and I'm hoping my children do the same for the next generation.
Students who got to hear the presentation enjoyed both the stories and experiences that Mr. Schmiga shared.
Specifically, I liked when he shared the photo of his, I recall it was his Uncle Izzy coming in and showing the tattoo on his arm from Auschwitz. It was really cool seeing that.
I liked when he was describing his parents' stories about how, what both of them went through and how they kind of went through different things, and I thought that was cool.
What students were able to get out of this presentation was much more than just hearing stories and experiences. Also shared were important life lessons.
Since I committed to doing it, I thought, what would I want a 7th or 8th grader to take out of it? And the only thing I would want them to take out of it was you should not have preconceived notions about individuals, especially if what their beliefs are or what they look like or how they act. So I think if anything out of that would be, don't have those stereotypes in your head. Give it a shot. There's too much hatred, too much negativism. It should be half full, not half empty.
It is presenters like Mr. Schmiga that help keep the stories alive. Hempfield continues to take steps such as these to better the community. From Hempfield Happenings, I'm Paige Gruber.
Both Mrs. Flake and Mr. Schmigo were truly insightful. Inside the school district, a new face can be seen at Mountville Elementary as Stacy Kane takes over as the principal.
Hi, I'm Ryan Jones and with Hempfield Happenings, and today I'm interviewing Mountville's newest principal, Stacy Kane. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for coming today. I'm excited to be interviewed and be part of this process for our Hempfield Happenings.
Can you tell us about your journey from in education, from the experiences that you've had outside of Hempfield to the ones that you've had inside of Hempfield?
My first 2 years were in State College at a small private school. I then moved to Lancaster County and started working in the school district of Lancaster. And so in the school district of Lancaster, I was a classroom teacher at the elementary level, multiple grades over the years. When I finally received my master's in leadership, I decided to leave the classroom. I took on Dean of Students for 3.5 years, and then an assistant principal to a principal. However, my daughter has been a Hempfield student, a proud Hempfield student. She is now 11, and so it was really, although I love my job, I love my position, I love being principal, I really wanted to get to be closer to my community here in Hempfield. You know, I've lived in the community, and so it just really made sense that I could be a part of it in another way. So that was my journey to Hempfield. I have only been here in this position for a little over a month, but so far I'm loving it and getting to know the people and the community. And so it's been a great experience.
What inspired you to go into education?
When I was going through college, I really felt that my calling was to educate others, and so that's what I pursued. And from there, just working with children and helping them learn, seeing that light bulb go off and really thinking about how do we make their learning experience just more engaging and more interesting and just bringing their interests into it. So that's always been a passion of mine. I enjoy watching the children work and work together, learn to be collaborative, and to see them grow.
What goals do you have for Mountville for the future? What plans do you wish to implement and new things that you wish to bring to Hempfield?
Ultimately, I want to continue to grow our school community. I want to work with the community members that feed into our school and really start to build those relationships and those partnerships with our community. And then here at the school, just to continue to grow that positive school environment, as well as helping teachers provide the best instruction that our children deserve.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Kane. I'm really excited, and I can say for the whole Hempfield community, welcome to Hempfield.
Thank you.
Ms. Kane will have a great impact at Mountville Elementary. With the recent rise in popularity of the Momo Challenge, Hannah Morris takes a closer look into how parents can keep their children and themselves safe on the internet.
As technology advances, more and more issues arise in keeping users safe. It is important to know the dangers of the internet, not only politically, but socially as well. To be aware of these dangers, as well as knowing how to prevent them, is called cybersafety. With the help of staff, concerned parents, and students here at Hempfield, we can now take steps into forming a safer cyber community.
I think that location is a big deal because when you tag your location or you have snap maps, people can find out where you are, and that can be a big problem with stalking and things like that.
Well, you could get your information stolen, your passwords could get taken, people could log into your Gmail, they could go into your Facebook, Instagram, anything. They could actually access your life if they manage to get any of your personal information.
In addition to identity or credit card theft, a multitude of dangers are buried within the internet. Recently, parents need to be wary about virtual kidnapping. This is when scammers use social media to stalk children and contact their parents claiming to have kidnapped their child and that they will only be returned after a ransom is paid. In most cases, the child has never actually been abducted, but the scammers use information found on the child's social media to make the event seem real.
Just some very simple things to do when you're online. First of all, protect your passwords. Don't share it with anybody. I mean, it sounds stupid, but it's that simple. The other thing that I would say too, to be careful of is downloading apps on your phone, or software on your computer. Things like that, you just want to be very careful of. If it's not needed, if it's not necessary, if you think it's a little bit intrusive, don't install it.
Another threat emerging from the internet relates to games or challenges. For example, both the Momo Challenge and Blue Whale Challenge have resulted in hundreds of deaths over the years. These challenges consist of any entity on the internet seeking out adolescents and coercing them to commit dangerous acts to themselves or others.
If we put these precautions into action, it could lower the possible dangers that may form from using the internet. From Hempfield Happenings, I'm Hannah Morris.
LMS Diem is an LMS teacher who is heavily involved within the community.
Of summative assessments coming your way, so this is something to keep an eye out for as soon as we finish.
Every person has their own unique story. This is how LMS Diem has made her mark on the community. By incorporating life lessons at a young age, Leah's family still influences her decisions today.
First of all, my mom and her family, they were refugees to Lancaster City from Latvia, and when they came to Lancaster, they were really, really cared for and like lifted up by the community in Lancaster. So it really mattered to my mom. And so growing up, she never called herself a community builder, but she like really set that example for me of like what it actually means to be engaged.
Mentor texts that are...
The first thing I would say I do for the community is work here at the school and have the students engage in community engagement activities. I really like to think about intrinsic motivation. So like what is actually important to them? Who actually matters in your life? What's your interest? Because I think that usually drives people pretty strongly. I try really hard to live by example with the students. So doing community things myself, like volunteering every year at the Extra Give or with nonprofits in Lancaster City.
And then float your hands to your thigh.
The second thing I do for the community is I teach a community yoga class. So every Wednesday night, Rheology, which is this like beautiful like repurposed art studio in the city, donates like their space so that we can have a community yoga class that is open to all levels and all people, like regardless of income or background or anything like that. It's by donation, so you pay what you can.
Depending who Leah sees the week before, every other Monday she hosts an evening event.
Oh, there he is. He has pots. The other kind of bigger thing that I do is a community dinner, and I just do that at my house, and it's sort of like a way to bring like different aspects of Lancaster together. So normally I like theme it to like a type of food. So like if we're like doing like Indian night, like everybody brings different kinds of Indian food or Mexican food or whatever. And it's a potluck really. Like everybody sort of brings something, and it's a nice thing to kind of pull everybody together.
I know.
You know, I think whenever you struggle, you kind of lean on your community outside of your family, and the community in Lancaster has been so wonderful to me, like during challenging times, that like I feel like it's a great thing to be able to like, give back in that way.
From teaching middle schoolers to hosting community dinners, Leah strives to make everyone in her community feel welcome and connected. From Hempfield Happenings, I'm Sarah Bender.
Some of Hempfield's art students were recently recognized for Scholastic Art and LCYA awards. Abby Minnick goes in depth regarding the meaning behind these awards.
Downtown Lancaster is home to the one and only DeMuth Museum, now joined together with the Lancaster Museum of Art.
Lancaster County Young Artists winners are being displayed at the Lancaster Museum of Art, while Scholastic Art winners are at the DeMuth Museum. Hempfield High School walked away with 28 Scholastic Awards, 2 LCYA Special Awards, 10 golds, 3 silvers, and the rest were honorable mentions.
It's all about honoring the students, and to go to these exhibits is exciting because you are looking at the best across the county from all across our different districts, both even homeschool students, private schools, public schools, all coming together. So that's a great thing.
Winning this award has proved to students that their art means something to more people than just them.
So that was like a big self-esteem boost to like realize that, oh, other people like my stuff too, and like it's not just me making stuff. It felt like cool because it's like the first award I ever got for my art, but it was like not like, oh wow, this is like crazy. It was just in between. It was nice.
I've been submitting writing for like the past 3 years, but I've never done art before. That was my first art thing I submitted. I usually focus on just pencil and stuff, but this year with art, I've gone out of my comfort zone to charcoal things and pastels. It made me feel like I contributed something to the art world in a sense.
Although the students are excited about winning this award, their art teacher believes they shouldn't take this achievement for granted.
Competition is a competition. Just because you win in one location does not mean it is going to be recognized as such in other locations. Art is subjective. One person can look at it and see one thing, and another can look at it and see something completely different. We can't attach a badge of success to a particular work of art just because it wins an award. It is an honor, and that's a great thing, and we're excited for our students, but we also want to communicate the big picture.
Even if you aren't confident in your own work, you should take the time to share it and show it to others because they may really enjoy it. From Hempfield Happenings, I'm Abby Minnick.
Art student Madison O'Connor shares her experience with the Hempfield Art Program.
Art can be found everywhere. But it all began somewhere. For the students at Hempfield, it began at the elementary schools.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2. Well, artists, this is what it's like putting an art show together.
The art show at Mountville Elementary School showcases the students' art and displays the skills they've grown through their lessons.
So the complexity in concept grows and their process gets, I guess, more integral to the artwork.
Artistic growth at Mountville is an experience familiar to former student Madison O'Connor.
Throughout elementary school, I started picking up more and more techniques, and more people were inspiring me, and I just kept getting better and better.
Madison's talent for art was able to flourish in her elementary classes.
Really were invested in creating and making attempts and invested in the quality. It was always didn't really have to ask to try or to make things look high quality. It was something innate.
Madison's elementary classes provided the base she needed to begin her art career.
Once I hit 6th grade and I was with Mr. Palmer, it really opened up my eyes, and I realized this is something I could really do for the rest of my life because I really enjoyed the environment I was in, the people I was talking to, and the people I was creating art with, and it just really made me who I am today.
In fact, today Madison is still pursuing her art in high school, and it was impressing her teachers with just her first few paintings.
It was just so beautifully painted. The marks looked really confident. I made a few suggestions here or there, and she just really ran with them. And from that painting, I could see that she was already looking at different tones. She was already looking at different intensities. She was really just at a higher end, and I was just okay, I got a great student here to work with.
Madison's art has developed from more than just the curriculum, but through the personal relationships that come with it.
One of the things that really helps is the rapport that we have with kids, because art needs to be a really safe space. And I don't think that you can get creative juices flowing and you can problem solve without feeling like you're getting supported as a student.
See, I have a personal connection with Miss K. I feel like I can tell her anything. And if I didn't have that connection with some of my art teachers, it wouldn't be the same because I wouldn't feel as comfortable in my environment, and as I wouldn't be able to express myself in the same ways that I do.
The foundation that Madison built in the art program allowed her skills to further develop.
Now I've noticed over time that she's thinking a little bit more conceptually. So she's thinking about what each object means that she's painting, how she's going to compose in order to have a more visual communication and things along those lines.
Hempfield's art program has provided several opportunities for students like Maddie to display their art.
I put a monarch on a flower. It was a hibiscus from Hawaii, and the reference picture was from my mom. And I made it look like it was a photograph with a butterfly sitting on top of it. And I submitted that to the Scholastic Art Award show.
At Hempfield, Madison found the opportunity for art to become a huge part of her life.
I would not have found out that I wanted to be an art educator if I didn't go through Hempfield art program, because all of my teachers along the way have guided me and showed me that I can do it and I can push through, and even if I'm having a block and I can't think of any ideas, it will always come to me in the end, and I will always be inspired by the people around me, and I will always enjoy doing and making art.
Madison's passions and skills for art will continue to develop along with her peers in Hempfield's art program. For Hempfield Happenings, I'm Maddie Olson.
Student-run announcements can be found in schools everywhere. Colson Hunt learned how CES runs their morning announcements through a program called Centerville Live.
Cheers, I'm Kayla. And I'm Alexis, and you're listening to Centerville Live.
Student-run news shows are prevalent across the country, especially in high schools. Just look at our own Hempfield Happenings. But here at Centerville Elementary School, young students are learning leadership skills through running their own morning announcements.
I think it's important that they take that leadership role. It's a school and we're all about students here at school, so I think it makes sense that they lead it, and it does show other students that there's something special to look forward to in 6th grade, as it is a special privilege in 6th grade. And the kids really get into it and they take it pretty seriously, but they have fun with it too.
To get a more first-hand experience of how the announcements work at Centerville, I followed student announcer Alexis Robinson through her morning routine, where she gets off the bus, walks to her classroom to check in, drops her things off, and heads immediately for the office, where she starts preparing the script for the morning announcements.
It makes me feel more mature and more responsible. I think they're important because coming from teachers, it wouldn't be as much fun. And the students have something to do, and it makes them feel more responsible.
In many cases, I worked with some of these children when they were very little as kindergartners or 1st graders, and then to see them now as 6th graders and all the maturity that has happened. I love to see how proud they get of themselves at the end when their time is over, and they feel so pumped.
Through Centerville Live, students learn valuable leadership and reporting skills they can use in their futures, especially in news. Take me, for example. My very own interest for reporting started here, announcing for Centerville Live. For Hempfield Happenings, I'm Colson Hunt.
Internships are a great way to gain experience in a job field. Frank Russo explains how internships give students of all ages experience.
All right, hello boys and girls.
Hello, Mrs. Crush.
After graduating high school, students tend to move on with their careers, but these interns at Farmdale Elementary School decided to stick with their roots. Michaela Ressinger grew up going to Farmdale Elementary. Now she is a student intern at Farmdale and goes to Millersville University.
Coming from your freshman and sophomore year, you do a lot of bookwork in college. So seeing, learning the theories and learning all the different theorists and everything, and then putting them into practice, it's a lot more beneficial because you get to learn hands-on how to work with hands-on children. It's very different from learning in a classroom and just hearing different ways of doing it versus you actually doing them.
Morgan Bright is also a student intern who grew up at Farmdale Elementary.
Really just the initial experience has been awesome. A lot of my professors at Westchester say this is where you'll learn the most. It's not from a textbook, so it's all field experience. So that's really gonna help me build a foundation for what type of school counselor I wanna be.
Getting to know the different teachers, getting to know principals, and even since I went here, knowing them previously, it works a lot just getting your name out there and just learning who all's in what positions. It can help a lot with just applying for jobs.
Michaela and Morgan are both looking for jobs in teaching once they finish their college degree.
So this is the final step for me. Once I complete my student teaching, I'll get my teaching certificate, and then I can be the head teacher in any PA classroom.
I would love to eventually work in the area when I graduate, so kind of just networking and going to different schools within the district and potentially outside of the district as well.
Being a student intern helps build a foundation for a teacher's entire teaching career. For Hempfield Happenings, I'm Frank Russo.
To hear more student stories along with other interesting reports, come back next month for our new episode.
Until then, this has been Riley and Jace for Hempfield Happenings.
Thanks for watching.